there was a Strava State of Sport recently that, analyzed 135 million users across 90 countries. And the majority of those athletes are women, and the majority of those women are in childbearing ages. And so it's not just the right thing to do to invest in women and developing product for them. It's business savvy to do so.
You're listening to the Active Mom Podcast with host Dr. Carrie Pagliano. I'm a mom, physical therapist, and your go-to guide for staying active with pelvic health issues in pregnancy, postpartum, perimenopause, and beyond. Whether you're a fellow mom, physical therapist, or women's health professional, join me where I'll share expert insights, real-life stories, and the latest research to help you approach running, CrossFit, yoga, Pilates, HIIT, or whatever activity you love with confidence and evidence-informed guidance. Let's start the show. All right, welcome back to the Active Mom Podcast. This episode is 3 times I think we've tried to record it now. And
busy moms, huh?
The grenades of motherhood have come to get all 3 of us at some point in time, but I am super, super excited. We have the co-authors of Strong as a Mother on a podcast. You might recognize a couple names here. Friend of the podcast and past guest, Jessica Dorrington, the physio in Oregon. And then you guys might also recognize I'm going to get this all wrong, but Olympian, multi-medal, Emmy-winning, you're going to have to fill in all this. Shannon Rowbury is on the podcast as well. So thank you, ladies, for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Carrie, for having us. It's a dream come true, actually, to just be here with you, but also to have a finished product that we've been working on for 9 years. So excited to share it with the world.
All right. Before we dive into the book, why don't we do the 30-second, hi, this is me, who I am, and then we'll dive right into the book. So Jess, you've been on the show before. Why don't you go ahead and kick it off?
Yeah. First and foremost, I'm a mom of 2. I have a 11 and 15-year-old, 2 boys that 10 minutes ago I was snuggling with my youngest, and here we are on the podcast now. So heart of where my heart lies. And I've been kind of like you, Carrie, we've talked about this, how we share such a common thread of being an orthotherapist and sports therapist and pelvic health, and have married those 2 worlds for over the last 2 decades. In my clinical practice, I'm a shareholder and a director of 2 practices now in Portland, Oregon. We have over 60 employees at this time. So just allowing us to serve a huge amount of people in the community, especially in pregnancy and postpartum. And I'm an avid runner. I'm still chasing my dreams of being faster as a master, even at 46. I feel like this year I'm going to drop another PR. So excited to just interweave what I practice and then also what I preach.
Love it. All right, Shannon, tell us about yourself.
Okay. My background is in professional track and field. So I was professionally sponsored from 2007 through 2021. And then a little bit beyond that, I guess that was my competing era. Mostly the 1500 meters. I was in 3 Olympics. So Beijing in 2008, London in 2012, where I got a bronze medal, and Rio in 2016. And, spent about a decade ranked top 10 in the world. And, but the undercurrent of that kind of professional athletic career was really this advocacy in the women's space. And so back in 2017, when I was pregnant, it was a scary time because there were no protections, neither for contracts or health insurance for female athletes who were pregnant. And so I led a committee in 2018 to create the first ever United States maternity policy for sports NGB, which became the framework of kind of what shoe companies and other NGBs eventually adopted. And at that same time, Jess and I met because I was competing or had just finished my 3rd Olympics. I was pregnant, and I could not find any readily available kind of like trustworthy information on how to be active and safe in that activity during pregnancy. Yeah. And so, luckily I found Jess and she became my guide, but through our conversations, we both felt that our moms deserved more. And, we thought, if it doesn't exist, maybe we should be the ones to create it. And so back in 2017, the idea of Strong as a Mother, kind of that seed of it was planted, and it took 9 years for us to finally bring it into the world, but we're really excited to have it.
Yay! It is almost birthed. It is almost birthed. Before we get any further, we're in pre-orders now. So if you guys want to pre-order it, we'll say this again at the end of the episode. But where can people pre-order if they want to check it out? And pre-orders really matter.
Yeah, pre-orders really matter, and especially on Amazon right now. So until February 17th, Amazon is the place to be. It's also on Target and Barnes and Noble and other sources.
Awesome. Okay, so let's dive into the book because everybody's like, oh, people should know about this. And then you have these two amazing moms that have a lot of experience, professional knowledge, background. What does it take to, first of all, pull something this massive together? And how did you figure out kind of what you wanted to include? Because I don't know about you, but I know so much more now than 10 years ago. Where did you figure out where you were going to begin on this?
Carrie, it started, there wasn't a lot of information back when you and I were treating patients 2 decades ago. And I would write things in a Word document just because I wanted to keep all my information gathered. So there was already a little bit of a framework just based on what we were doing in the clinic. I started a program called the Bump to Baby program at our clinic, where I wanted to see women at 12 weeks to teach them what they could do for exercise. And we really only kept 12 weeks because we knew that, 25% of patients are miscarrying, and we didn't want them to think that exercise was actually what was causing their miscarriage. There was no other rationale aside from that. And then we would again see them probably at 20 or 25 weeks, or if they started to have some musculoskeletal things come in before that. And then we did a birthing preference plan at 36, 37, and 38 weeks to teach them both what they can do for helping labor and delivery, what their partners can do. But then on that third birthing preference plan, we would teach them and say, now here's what you get to do from the day you deliver. Here's when you can start your pelvic floor strengthening. Here's how we want you to get started walking. And we're going to see you at 2 or 3 weeks. We're going to do a full core analysis and biomechanical analysis using the ultrasound that we had. And then when you're cleared for intercourse, we're going to do that internal exam. So we've been practicing that framework with patients for almost 2 decades. And that's really where the content came from, was taking things that we knew worked clinically because there wasn't a lot of research. And then, of course, all the new research that's come out in the last 5 years, right? It's like, exploding. And so I would come back to Shannon and our publisher. I'd be like, wait, I need to change that sentence by 1 word. Wait, I need to add this one key fact in.
I have a whole separate question about that later. We'll chat about that in a little bit. Shannon, as somebody who, you had this amazing career, you're looking at trying to figure out what to do when you're looking for some sort of framework and you don't find anything. Like, how frustrating must that be? And then you find Jess, like,
Yeah. I mean, I just remember thinking to myself, if it's this hard for me with the access that I have, and then I realized also it wasn't just that hard for me. I would talk to my other, I called up Paula Radcliffe. I spoke to Alicia. It was this whisper network of just like, what did you do? What worked? But none of them had, could point to a resource that was like, here's a great book that you can read through. There's books about everything. And yet there wasn't something easy to follow for this, at least in 2017. And so, I think when I think about creating the book, first of all, it was so hard to get it made because we kept knocking on doors and agents and publishers kept telling us there's no market for this book. Nobody wants this book.
Wow.
And we kept talking to the moms who said, they who had lived this experience that were like, when can I get this? Why doesn't it exist? And so there was this disconnect between what the publishing industry believed our moms deserved and what we knew we needed, wanted, and should have. And so that journey was really tough for us. And we got to the point where we had the book, I would say in the creation of it, I was the one that really tried to add the structure. I don't have that medical experience that Jess has, but I have followed training plans, and I
Right.
could help sort of structure it in a way that was like, let's think about these bite-sized digestible things. What's the information that I, as someone coming from the outside, really valued learning? And we built it like over 200 pages in Canva because we were like, fine, we will just self-publish. But then luckily we met our agent, Susan, from Legacy LLC. And she, I was connected to her through MEB. It's his same agency for literary agency, I should say. And then we were able to connect with Avalon, who was the acquiring editor at Sasquatch. And she had been a collegiate rower. She was a new mom. And for the first time in this kind of publishing journey, we didn't have to explain the need because
Yeah, they know.
and I still get goosebumps about it because it was just such a hard journey. But finding those people, finding
Right.
your people like this, that kept us going. And we really hope and pray that, what we've created, it can be something that's a value add for
Yeah.
anyone who gets it.
Well,
And
it's
Shan,
I was gonna
I
say, it
think,
seems almost crazy sitting here right now, being like, yeah, nobody's interested in, return to exercise or in or pregnancy exercise or anything like that. And
Yeah.
to me, it seems like that's bananas.
Right.
But
It was, that was as late as 2023, I think,
oh my
2024,
God.
that we finally so not even that long ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think there had been books in the past that just, the didn't take off in the way that they imagined they should. And the industry, the publishing industry, it is shifting.
Right.
But a lot of the decision makers are very, homogenous. And
Mm.
so, it takes diversity of background, diversity of experience to create a really kind of like innovative organization. And I think we were able to get our project in front of
Yeah.
them, and find a home for it. And they treated it with, we really envisioned a book that wasn't just black and white, that it was color coded by trimester and illustrations and beautiful. Like we wanted our moms to have this, this experience of being pregnant. We all know it. It's all the feelings, and we wanted, the book that we created to be something that felt like a beautiful add-on.
Yeah.
And so, that took a lot of extra effort. Like it was a complicated book to make. And to your earlier question, what do you include and not include? We spent a lot of time, like, what is the book we want to create, or what is like our best kind of like knowledge or kind of strongest entree into this, this space as a published work. And as a result, kind of like really focusing in on the work that Jess has been doing in her clinic for the last 2 decades, and sort of the structure that I, as a new mom, really felt was helpful to follow. And we got it out there.
Yeah. No, I think that's one of the things that people discount about being pregnant and early postpartum is you need something to be glanceable, with very few brain cells required.
yeah, we designed the exercises with the research knowing, I think there's some stats that if you give 3 exercises, people do it 72% of the time. You give them 4, it's like half. And after that, forget it.
Yeah.
Right.
No, no, no.
So just
Yeah.
those bite-sized micro doses of how they
Yeah.
can get the exercises
Yeah.
done.
But yeah, I don't know if your patients are like this. I'm sure they are, Jess. But like, you give them something and it's very simple and straightforward and exactly what they need. It'll meet the deficits, the whole thing. And then they're like, well, what else can I do? I'm like, why don't we just stick with what I gave you? They
Or
want the
I
extra.
YouTube this exercise, or what about this one my friend is doing? I'm like, well, that's a good one too, but it's not exactly what you need.
And several emails after that came, you could see it. It's like 2 a.m. on a Saturday night. I was like, I know what happened to you last night.
I was trolling the internet and I saw this thing.
Yeah.
Feel like
Yeah.
it came on my Instagram feed, right? Is this one good
Right.
for me?
Well, I mean, I think that brings up a really relevant point. And I, because I think I have the oldest kids overall, with mine being, my son's about to turn 15 and then my daughter's 12. And like, I did not have the Insta comparison. I didn't have the scroll, like you didn't really scroll Facebook for information in that way. It was more to kind of see what your friends were up to. But like, how do you feel about where the book fits in the constant like scroll society when people are like, hey, well, what about this on YouTube? Or where do you feel like this fits in that?
Yeah, I would say, Shannon has said this from the get-go, and I think it's such wise advice. She's like, even as an Olympian, I chose to settle in the middle. I didn't do anything, but I didn't go out and run 100 miles a week. I really chose to find out what, kind of I would say the cost versus benefit is
Mhm.
of really going hard and exercise. And that's where we wanted to have the book live as well, because we know, I think, from the 2019 Canadian guidelines, right? They said less than 15% of women are doing 150 minutes of activity
Yep.
a week. So this book needs to speak to that group as much as it needs to speak to our moms who are regular exercises, as well as those who are doing a lot more. And in that realm, you're probably going to go seek a professional for more outside guidance, but we really wanted it to settle in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would say, I think it's been really exciting, this shift in women are talking about these things, women are demanding more information. What we wanted to be was a, clinically researched, medically backed guide. Um, there will always be others who want to share things on the internet, but we hope that, um, we can be seen as like this almost, kind of millennial version of what to expect when you're expecting, or something like that, but like a trusted source.
Yeah.
Um, because yeah, there is a lot of noise. But we wanted to have a place that someone could go and say, okay, at least, I may be hearing all these things. Let me go back and try to reference this
Yeah.
against what has really been researched and what is really recommended.
And
Yeah.
Perry, we really, we looked at social media and we're like, look at how much people are thinking they still have a diastasis or diastasis recti. And oh my goodness, I can't do anything with a prolapse. And there was kind of that hot moment of too much implications of things and putting it on social media that necessarily weren't true. So we really wanted the book to be this knowledge is power. And
Mhm.
patients know what prolapse is, that they probably can do activity and it's not going to make their prolapse worse, and just give them the basic tools so that they can be their own patient advocates and come to you and me and our colleagues and be like, I actually read about this condition called X, and I
Yep.
think I might be a person who fits in that camp. Like, it would PT benefit me? And because we know so many women, I think I updated the stat. It was 25% of women used to go seek healthcare consults for pelvic floor services. I can now say 38%.
Okay.
So we're making headway. But we really wanted the book to just be that, to give people the knowledge at their fingertips, because I'm sure you're in cash based,
Yep.
correct?
Mhm.
And in cash based, you are on constraints of people's finances. You can't give them 288 pages of book
Right.
content info when you're trying to deal with their SI dysfunction. And I'm on the flip side, I'm an insurance based, and I have somebody sit on a bike postpartum at 2 weeks, and insurance says, well, they don't need PT anymore. So how do we give them the information? Was really where
Yeah.
it was coming from.
Yeah, and you guys did a nice job, like organizing through the trimesters, kind of 1 through 4, really sort of hitting the high points but keeping it very digestible. And then you weaved in my personal favorite. I love a good myth. So you guys weaved in the MythBusters. You wove in a few stories about some pros. What kind of made you think that those things were kind of important to intermix amongst the information and the exercises?
I think from the myths, there are people who whether it's their parent or their friends who've had babies before, they've been told those myths by our profession, by OBs, because that was the current knowledge we had at the time. So we needed to kind of level set the ground for them. And getting those myths in the book really level played that for them so that they could say, actually, I read something that new research shows this. And, the pro stories, all of the pros that I've had the honor to walk alongside with this, their stories are there because each one has a different moment. Some show that first pregnancy didn't feel good to run. Second pregnancy, maybe swimming felt better. How they dialed things back and brought it to the middle, how they used their resources around them, just to show that even those that are competing at the highest level are choosing to find a new space during pregnancy and kind of honor the journey.
Yeah, no, I love that. The myths especially, and this is where I think those of us who are more my vintage, so we're talking more about perimenopause than we are about postpartum. Whole other bag is obviously just
I know.
wink, wink. I mean, there was a very famous podcast last week, and the host, it was like Mel Robbins and a neuro. She goes by Lady Spine Doc or something like that. And they were talking about what the impact is of pregnancy on the back, and why they were talking to a neurologist, I don't know, but all the women my vintage, right? And so, but the neurologist was talking about how her abs were destroyed and how the back has to accommodate, a 60-pound weight gain, and just like all of this stuff that, back when I had my kids, I would be nodding left and right. But now we know, hey, if you have back pain, yes, we need to be exercising. You can seek therapy. Using words like destroyed is very like it's very scary, and we're trying not to pathologize pregnancy. And I was like, I think my vintage, just you're welcome to pitch in here too. Like, I think we are not helping the next generation because we still haven't processed our own trauma and lack of having some of these things addressed. And I mean, again, if I weren't treating this every day for the last 15 years, I probably feel the same way. But like,
Yeah.
we've come so far. And so, like Jess said, like, especially the last 5 to 7 years, the amount of research is insane. The next generation of moms deserve to have updated information and not carry our trauma. So I'm
Totally.
amazing.
Yeah. And, I've seen that on, the internet and kind of what I've seen our profession saying. I actually had the opposite. I had a midwife who, she empowered me to continue running. She actually cleared me at 2 weeks for both intercourse and return to exercise. And I was moving and getting out there and hiking with my son in a pack, and that was already kind of instilled in kind of my journey. And I think that's part of where Strong as a Mother's Foundation came from. Was I did have some of those early adopters in the midwife section kind of believing in me. In fact, I was reflecting on my baby shower, because Shannon and I, our true goal is that every baby registry has a resistance band and a kettlebell and a mat, right? Like,
Cool.
Wouldn't that be the perfect mother gift? But I was reflecting, I had a lingerie party, right? So my girlfriends threw me a lingerie party, and you don't need that many pieces of lingerie, 30 people to a party. That's a lot of lingerie. But on the flip side of it, somebody brought me new sports bras, new tank tops. And I remember that being so instrumental in my healing process. Was somebody believes in me. Somebody believes in my goals of becoming an athlete and continuing my running journeys. So that was just, so steadfast every time I put them on and go for a run, and I'd feel empowered. So
that to me is the ultimate push present, is like,
right?
you give me a pair of shoes and a sports bra.
Totally.
Your mom, I'm like, don't ask for it. Like, those are the two things that you need. You don't apologize for going and spending the money. You go get those things.
Right. Well, it's hard to make time for you. We all know how hard it is once the baby comes. There's all this anticipation and celebration of the pregnancy journey. But I remember postpartum being like, why did nobody tell me all of these things? Jess told me a ton, but there's so much that we don't want to be like a Debbie Downer for the mom after the baby's born. And yet here, when you're up in the middle of the night or dealing with, if you had any tearing and you've got bleeding or whatever it might be. Like there's so much postpartum that, you're kind of taking in. And I think the more that we can kind of give moms the information so that they can access it in the moment that they need it. They don't necessarily want to read about it beforehand, but when they need it in the moment to have it there. Um, and also to, I think I think it's really important to help those moms make space for movement during pregnancy and postpartum.
Yeah.
And so for us, it was also really important to explain why it was beneficial, not just for mom, but also for baby, so that they could,
Mhm.
you know, if they needed any convincing or if they needed to convince anyone else, there were like
Right.
data around why this is great and why this is, investing in yourself is good for everybody. It's good
Yeah,
for the whole family.
for sure. And I mean, now, Jess, I'm sure you were dying like every time Margie Davenport published something.
It was like, finally, this is out here, because it's the things we've known clinically for so
Oh, I
long.
know.
I felt like, I think about all the protocols that have been out there. And I don't know about you, but like, I always just looked at somebody as a holistic individual. And it's like, okay, I know you're biomechanically sound. I know you didn't have any tearing. You're feeling great. Your baby's sleeping well. I might change when you get to move on a protocol of return to run. And
Mhm.
then we had these markers of like, well, they cannot run till 6 weeks. And then it was, well, you can't run till 12 weeks. And I felt a bit conflicted when you'd have an athlete come in and they're like, I went for a jog. I'm 3 weeks
Mhm.
postpartum. And you're like, well, technically, I'm supposed to tell you your AMA, which is against medical advice for going out and exercising, which never intuitively felt right. So it's been nice to see all the papers that are coming out now saying
Yeah.
exercise is safe
Yeah.
and exercise is really helping depression and anxiety and all the things that
Yeah.
we've known for so long. So it
Yeah.
feels like we're coming full circle again.
It's better too. And I think some of the Delphi studies, I was talking to Rita Deering, she was our season opener this year, and she was talking about the question of the Delphi study asking, is it okay to return, between that 3 to 6 week mark?
Mhm.
And I know like you've had clients that, totally could. I've had clients that totally should, and just as many that shouldn't. And it
Sure.
just, there's so many parts and pieces to that decision. And it's funny, like we I think our profession sometimes we want to get like black and white, and it's just so much gray. And as
It's
soon as
all
you
great.
accept that, and I think that's just being older too. I'm like, look, I don't have all the answers, but we're gonna figure this out.
Well,
Um,
and as Shannon knows, as an athlete, right there, that gray is so much also understanding your own body and knowing today I need sleep and today my body needs rest and tomorrow I can go do that thing. So
yeah.
I think, Shannon's perspective on always bringing that athlete lens has been so important too in this process.
Yeah, so Shannon, why don't you tell us, first baby, second baby, kind of what was the easiest part and then hard parts, and then if there's anything that you look back on and you're like, wow, I was so naive, because I know we've all had
Oh
those.
my gosh. Gosh, I mean, the first baby, the hardest part was being a professional female and athlete in an industry that had not made space for that. So, um, my fear of even sharing that I was pregnant because I knew my shoe contract could be reduced or terminated for not competing and having to race throughout my pregnancy to keep it active, and still being threatened with reduction for 4 months postpartum. Um, that was, it was really like traumatic. And I had to go back to training full time at 2 months postpartum. I had to race at US cross country nationals at 6 months postpartum. And I ended up getting a stress fracture because I had to rush back so quickly. And so, I think my first pregnancy, so much of it was this like my dream of being a mother that I'd had long before I ever dreamed of being an athlete or an Olympian. Like this deep dream I've had since I was a little kid was coming true. but I was terrified that there would be all of these consequences, and there were consequences. That really felt so unfair, and it, as a big reason why I felt motivated to push for the creating that maternity policy for USA Track and Field, because you know our moms don't our moms, as we've seen, when we create a space for them to be pregnant and to come back at their own time, they can do incredible things.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like Eleanor St. Pierre, Ellie St. Pierre is like the superhero, superwoman example of that, coming back to win worlds a year postpartum. But the reality is that we just need to, understand that that these moms, having a baby isn't bad for business. It's just part of that human experience. And if we can allow them to do it in a way that is, that we can support, if we can support them along the way, they can come back better than before, in a lot of cases, or at least come back thriving. My second pregnancy, that was, I stopped competing in 2021 and I got pregnant with my son shortly after that. And that one was a different experience in that I was sort of grieving the end of my running career, and I didn't have these expectations of returning to activity, but I also didn't have direction in terms of what I wanted to do next. And that kind of identity crisis when you go from very clear, I'm trying to be best in the world at something, to then, how do I translate that into my next career? So I think there was a lot of identity crisis and self-discovery, and then layered on top of that becoming a mom. I remember the first time it was harder for me becoming a mom the first time, because life changes so dramatically. I would be on the road 7 months out of the year when I was competing, because I would be at training camps and racing, and suddenly there was this little person and she was my number one priority, and that was a shift even from, sole focus on my professional running career to now this first priority, which was my daughter. And I just remember about a month into her being born, I was like, what have I done to my life? Everything is
I think about that.
She gave me such purpose. So I think that it took longer to get there, but this new person, and thinking about, as a pro athlete, a lot of my career was, I just need to be tough enough. I have to figure out how to survive it, even if it feels wrong. Even if these coaches or these companies aren't great, this is just the price you have to pay to be in this sport. Right. When my daughter was born, I remember thinking, would I ever allow her to be treated the way that I was treated? And it was no, with an exclamation point and some expletives all around it. So it really gave me a shift in that perspective on the sporting industry and kind of ways that it could be improved, and this determination to see if in my own small way and with incredible partners like Jess, that we could try to be part of the change for good.
Yeah. No, as you were speaking, I feel like your kind of group, I don't know how you would identify yourselves, but the what you guys went through and the fact that you have been sharing it so openly. And I'm thinking of when Kara Goucher's book came out, Lauren Fleshman's book, and I think a lot of us look back on your journeys and identified some of the things we're like, wow, maybe this wasn't healthy. And then you guys are literally challenging the forces that be to be like, okay, I'm going to try and come back after pregnancy, when that was not something that was typical. You're trying to continue your careers and you're trying to break these glass ceilings. And man, you put a crap load of cracks in it. And I mean, obviously there's still a lot of things, but I always talk about the parallel of the societal awareness of women in pregnancy, and then what we've navigated professionally is back in the day, when I was pregnant the first time, we're like, yeah, we're going to run right up until pregnancy and all that, but or run right up until delivery. But we didn't have a way to do that. We didn't have ways to guide to do that. When we're saying, don't do this, it might hurt the baby or it might hurt you. Those two things didn't make sense, but we didn't have examples. That was 2010, 2011. Here we are 15 years later. we got lots of examples, but look at all the things that had to happen from an equality perspective, from compensation, from, getting, so that you guys can get waivers to skip races and things like that to be able to move on. Like, I feel like one would have not have happened without the other. If you guys hadn't have pushed, it wouldn't have given us anything to kind of help guide other people through. But I don't know, Jess, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Shannon and I were just at the running event this past December, and we were amazed at how much of the programming was about the female athlete in sport and really supporting females. Now, what we want to see is then we went and walked the floor on kind of all the specialty. The running event is basically like where people are going to see the new and upcoming products that are out there. And there wasn't a lot of product on the floor for women yet. There wasn't a maternity sports bra. There wasn't the things that they were teaching in the programming. So we know that they're interested. We know they're leaning in. Now it's a matter of them really getting behind and making the talk become actionable.
Yeah. Well, even just Shannon, when you were mentioning the stress fractures and things like that, like no one was talking about energy availability. No one, it was like the athlete tried, it's your knee. No one's talking about stress fractures related to women in lactation. Like,
Yes, and nutritional needs, and I mean, it makes sense because even the majority of the athlete studies aren't on women's bodies. So
right.
try to add the layer of a pregnant or postpartum woman and the layer of breastfeeding, and it's like, good luck finding that.
Yeah.
But I love the potential that I love sports tech. It's a space that just is fascinating to me. And I love the potential that these wearables create for some data analysis,
Yeah.
people self-selecting in, and the companies that are identifying those people who self-select into those wearable devices, and really doing studies and analysis on whether it's just the menstrual cycle and how that impacts your body and your performance, and then pregnancy as well. And so, I think that gives that I'm excited to see what will come as a result of that. And the other thing that I love to kind of sing from the mountaintops, because more people I think need to hear it. I think that there's this assumption that investing in women is it's the right thing to do, which it is, but that it stops there, and that overlooks the fact that it actually makes good business sense.
Yeah.
And so I love to quote, I remember there was a Strava State of Sport recently that, analyzed 135 million users across 90 countries. And the majority of those athletes are women, and the majority of those women are in childbearing ages. And so it's not just the right thing to do to invest in women and developing product for them. It's business savvy to do so. And especially, Jess taught me this statistic, but if we lose women most often in 2 times, when they get their period and when they get pregnant, and if this incredible surge of running participation that we've been seeing since COVID is fueled by women in childbearing ages, if we want to keep that, wave and grow it even, we need to make sure that we're creating products to serve the majority of that customer base. And so, anyone, I think it's just important to remember the statistics so that these companies can't overlook the fact that there's this huge market potential if they just spend some time understanding that customer and creating products for her.
Well, and mom makes the purchases. Let's just be honest.
And the healthcare decisions, right?
Exactly.
Consumer spend is in the hands of women. That is a vast majority of the consumer spend, people. So, to your point, Carrie, like let's actually think about the customer rather than just, I think once again, if you lack diversity in your organization, you are missing out on an awareness of this customer base, and what they need and what will really serve it. And that's bad business.
Yeah, no, totally. I was laughing with the insurance stuff because our insurance company, for some stupid reason, decided to give every person in our family a separate card now. So my kids each have their own, and my husband started to take them. I'm like, why do you have them? I was like, I'm the one that takes them to all their appointments, not you. I'm the one that has to fill out the stupid, field trip sheet and filled it out 17 million times, not you.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
And that brings up a good point of insurance, Carrie, is like, insurance needs to be looking at things like this book and other products that are out there and giving it to their participants. Shannon and I have had this goal of like, what if every pregnant mom, their insurance company bought them an $18 book and said, here's all the knowledge you need. And how much would that impact our, not just the moms who are already working out, but the moms who aren't moving, who aren't hitting the 150. I think there's huge ways that insurance can use kind of the knowledge that our profession has and, our allied professions in this maternal health space and say like, here, we can help move this forward and really change motherhood mortality as well. And Shannon and I have been partnering and starting to develop some things where the book actually goes to those with the biggest need. They have hypertension, they have risk for, high BMIs, they don't have resources. And their book is going in with a wearable, as Shannon's talking about.
Oh, that's amazing.
And we're actually going to test and see if they get this knowledge and information, can we change motherhood mortality in people of color? Because we know that's so prevalent still in our
Yeah. Yeah, no, I feel like, when you talk about pregnancy, postpartum, and exercise, you're hitting on so many kind of caveats and aspects of our society as a whole. So I don't know how like someone can't be interested in it, but that's just me. I'm like, how can you not be interested? You have a mother,
But it took 9 years to get, the right people behind it. And it's still and I still have athletes who, to speak to Shannon's space, who are afraid to say they're pregnant. Go, okay, like, what's this going to do for my contract? Like, there are still caveats around it. So we've still got a lot of space to move forward on both ends of the spectrum.
Well, and this as far as, we feel like things have gone and how much better and more access to information, I think you also see women who are very, very active. The second they become pregnant, all of a sudden they're terrified. They're terrified of doing something wrong, thinking that there is a right and wrong. And then you have women, like you said, who haven't been active, and they're told, well, don't start something new, when that's getting pregnant is the perfect opportunity to start activity. So we have to be prepared to have these conversations, but also be aware that our background, our what we've been told through the generations, our individual experience, what our community, what's normal in our community, what our physicians and our healthcare providers tell us carries so much weight in that first couple of month period of time, when you can be perfectly logical, but you can also be scared to death because you don't want to do anything wrong. Shannon, can you speak to that a little bit, as far as, you're this amazing athlete, you trust your body, and then all of a sudden you're pregnant, and, what is that feeling like?
Yeah, it's the most human experience, because whether you're an Olympic athlete or the polar opposite of it, we're all in the same boat when it comes to trying to get pregnant, finding out we're pregnant. And then I just remember going, suddenly you're not supposed to sit in a hot tub, and in some countries soft cheese is bad, and maybe lettuce too, like all these things that were supposed to be safe are suddenly dangerous. And so it stands, it's not surprising that then women are thinking that activity must be bad as well, especially given the hundreds of years of, trying to bubble wrap women and put them in confinement and tell them they can't do anything. So we do have a lot of misconceptions to overcome, and lack of kind of clear guidance, or easily accessible guidance for moms. I think that was a big reason why I wanted to try to find that resource. Okay, so if I'm not supposed to sit in a hot tub, but I know that being active during pregnancy is good, but what exactly does that mean, and how much, and how do I gauge it? that's where I was so lucky to find Jess, and she could kind of put
Yeah.
me at ease, and she could give me the information on those things. We really tried to create Strong as a Mother with that same sentiment of like a mom finds out this exciting news and then she's like, now what? And we wanted to just
Yeah.
have a resource that she could go and understand, okay, 150 minutes, and I can gauge it through the talk test or the heart rate or the Borg scale. And it depends on, and like kind of some caveats based on where you are in pregnancy to help you understand which ones to use, how to figure out your hydration, those sorts of things. Like
Yep.
stuff that might seem simple or basic or even obvious once you know it. But when you haven't been through it before,
Yeah.
you really need someone to give you that kind of step-by-step understanding.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say for me, like I felt just like I assume every other mom when she finds out that news, like it's very humbling. And and then finding your community like helps
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. No, I'm thinking, even just with some updated research, I think we had 2 papers in 2025 that basically looked at weightlifting in supine, so on your back and doing bench press and things like that. Total, like that's one of those old wives' tales. Again, don't lay on your back. That was my happiest place, waking up at like 41 and a half weeks pregnant with both my kids. I'm like, I can breathe. You know? But I still get people all the time, oh, I woke up on my back. I'm like, that's okay. But now we've got some data to say not only can you be on your back, but we can exercise on our back. But this came out in 2025. You guys wrapped up, the general content, it looks like in 2023. What would your recommendations be to kind of people that, obviously for books, you have to cut it off at some point. How do we kind of encourage people to be like, hey, this is a great place to start, but how do we start to fill in the gap on everything that's come since that cutoff for the book?
Yeah, I would say our publisher was really kind to us. And up until
It's been crazy.
until they were like, Jess, just one more edit. That's all we can put in. And we did put a pillow behind your back if you're feeling short of breath in the book, because ACOG guidelines are still there. I think that was the hardest part, is how do you put something in the book that we know a research paper has come out, but yet big
Yeah.
governing bodies that most of the general medical professionals especially are still operating under. That was a weird
That's a good point.
to say, oh, I want to put this in the book. I know that should be there, but that's going to seem too far away from where we are. And that's almost where this book was 9 years ago. If people would have saw this book 9 years ago, they would have been like, no, wait a second. But now we've got this mass movement, which is
Yep.
beautiful. And people are saying, yeah, of course it's safe to exercise when you're pregnant. And now we're saying, okay, actually laying on your back, if you're looking at pelvic floor disorders, the intra-abdominal pressure you create is way less than when you're standing up. So not only is it okay and safe for baby, it's also probably even better for your pelvic floor if you've got some type of pelvic floor dysfunction. So
Yeah.
Where we go from there, I think there's a few things. Molly Huddle and Alicia Montano are working, and Sarah Slattery are working on a book to come of this. They consulted with us, and like, we really want it to be like, here's what to expect when you're expecting, here's Strong as a Mother. And then their book is going to have a lot of nuances of kind of breastfeeding and nutrition and those things. So I think there's so much room for more space for more books out there. We need one on nutrition. We need one on breastfeeding. We need one on, hormone management, or the like the psychological pieces behind it. So I think there's just space for people to keep adding to the library of books that we can keep layering on top of.
Yeah, I love that. And again, to have the privilege of actually saying that, which sounds insane right now, but I mean, when you've been in this as long as Jess and I have, we're like, I'm so happy there are Canadian researchers right now. I'm like, thank you, Canada.
They're doing amazing. I don't know about the US, but I was in part of a Delphi study last year, and it was more about athletes. So we're doing some stuff in the US, but not quite as much as I think we could be producing.
Yeah. But that was one of the reasons for this podcast, was like getting researchers to share their research and get it disseminated sooner. I forget what the stats are, to get a a publication from like research being published to actual general use. Like it's a really long time. And I was like, well, what if we just reduce the amount of time? And
Mhm.
also people forget that like researchers are humans too.
Yeah,
Um,
often.
and a lot of them are moms. And then you get fun people like Shalaya Kip, she gets on here and she's got an amazing story and she gives great ramen recommendations for Vancouver. So I'm like, it's a win-win here. So
Well, and Carrie, we just have to give you kudos. I mean, you have been in this space for so long. I mean, you think about how many years has it been since you created Active
um,
Podcast?
we just finished up 4 years. We're gonna hit 100,000 downloads quite shortly. So
Isn't
that's
that
exciting.
amazing? I mean, just the fact that you have created that space for moms to get this knowledge, for us to have discussions like what we're talking about now in this discussion, in 5 years, some of it might not be relevant. And you're creating this safe environment for people to share the research that's up to date at the point in time. And it allows us to continue to keep moving forward and say, well, that's what we knew to be true then. Now let's keep
Yes.
moving the dial on it. And
Yeah.
and we're going to get to such a better place by having that open and just safe environment to do that. So
Yeah.
thank you a
Oh,
million times over from the clinician who practices this every day.
I'm a big fan of everybody I talk to. I was just like, I'm looking for an excuse to just like chat with friends and make new friends, honestly.
You still owe me this like weekend where we're going to go cross country skiing. Remember? Like
There's a lot of us. Shannon, you
we're
can come on in on this too.
gonna have
So
some fun. Yeah,
if
I'm down.
there's a lot of us that grew up where we ran, but in the winter we did Nordic skiing.
Yeah.
And so some of us didn't love track as much as you. I still have like PTSD on getting on the track, but all of my coaches were football coaches and they needed to chuck them somewhere. So they decided to throw them at a bunch of pubescent girls in the spring. So no trauma there. No, so but like cross country skiing is like so much fun. So yes, we'd talk someday about we'll get this together. But no, I mean I think what I appreciate more than ever is, in this era of misinformation and you don't know who to listen to, that there is a place for stories. There is a place for research, and there is this messy middle where we talk about the fact that there can be a lot of different ways that this can go. And ultimately you're going to hear a voice in there somewhere that makes you feel like you're not alone and that you're being heard and that you're being validated. And I think the more that we can get those conversations out there, and I might not be remotely close to an Olympic level runner, but I can hear something in Shannon's story that makes me think I can relate to that. Because again, at the end of the day, like you said, we're all humans. So and every mom, we've gone through a lot of the same things together, which I love. So
I think that to me has been probably the most beautiful part of becoming a mother, that humanizing, aspect of it where you're really laid bare and you come out a different person. Once you become a mother, you are just a different person.
mhm.
But for me, as someone who pre-baby could like gonna get it all together and like, could try to pretend I was superwoman even though I wasn't. I could try to pretend I could do it all alone, even though I never was.
Yeah.
But once baby came into the world, it was very obvious that I couldn't do this on my own, that I needed help. Um and that, yeah, that like humbling and like humility that comes from that, and the relationships, like the way
Yeah.
that you can then connect with these other people, not just women, but a lot of women, like just this community.
Yeah.
I think for me, I really found that once I became a mother. My sporting days, I felt very isolated. And I think some of that was purposeful from the coaches that I had, but it was beautiful to, and becoming a mother, to build this community and to find strength in that and
Yeah.
humor in that, and kind of creative inspiration, like
Yeah.
for you, you're creating this podcast and creating these conversations and community around it. And I think for us, we're following in that same energy and that same movement of like, let's just add to the world what we wish we had and what the
Yeah.
world needs. And that feels, I don't know, like, it is so hard. It's all still so hard, but that feels really meaningful.
Yeah. Yeah. And that doesn't go away. I think probably Jess, you would agree too. Like we're in it just in a different in it right now.
100%.
Houses full of hormones and diminishing hormones and raising hormones and all that. Like
Uh,
you'll get there, but man, it's like having toddlers, but they can, feed themselves and wipe their own butts now.
I just got a driver in my house, Carrie. So
Yes.
we've got
Yes.
the permit, and it's like, oh my
That's
gosh, I'm on
gonna
the other
be
side of the wheel. And there's
yes, Jess was filling me in the other day because my oldest will be driving over the summer, and I was like, "Oh my God, Jesus, take the wheel!" Like, Shan, you're just like, I'm just trying to get through the night.
Yeah.
but
All I know is like my spicy little kids, I love them to death, but I'm like, if you have this kind of energy at
Mhm.
8, like God help me
Mhm.
when the hormones kick in.
Mhm.
But
but
we
it,
need a
but it,
little
yeah.
strength, I guess, for this
But
world.
it's also relatable. Shannon, you said you felt like a superhero sometimes, right? And I'll never forget, somebody told me one time, they're like, sometimes as a mom, yes, you wear this superhero cape, but sometimes you just have to like put it over and use it as a nap, right?
Oh,
Like
I
take a
like
nap on the
that.
floor. And I'm
I
like,
like it.
yes, I can still be superwoman, but I can put this cape on and take a nap, because no matter what
Mhm.
stage you're at, whether it's the non-sleeping stage, you're
Mhm.
trying to figure out the new, you know, things that baby is doing. You're like, wait, I just solved one problem and now I have
Mhm.
another problem. Or
Mhm.
you've got a
Take a
teenager and
nap.
raging hormones, we need naps.
See, this is therapy. This is really
Yeah,
just
right.
therapy.
Gotta laugh. Just gotta laugh it out.
Oh gosh. All right. Before we get to our ending questions, what was one of the favorite pieces of the book for you to put together? Jess, I'll start with you. What
Mm.
was one of your favorite parts of the book?
Yeah, I've reflected that on that a lot. And I think it was working with the illustrator. The
Mm,
illustrator we had, we got to create each person. So
really
Shannon and I
great.
got to create what the avatars were. So you'll see 5 or 6 women throughout the book.
Cute.
Yes, there they are. And but then I got to get into the weeds with it. I would send back to the illustrator and say, move this knee by half an inch, because
Yeah.
otherwise it's not the right form. And we
Yeah.
still wanted the right correct form to match the illustration. So
Mhm.
that was really fun to just see kind of your words and those pictures come to
Yeah.
life and really be meaningful, and also know that they're not going to have 2025 haircuts in them. They'll hopefully stand the test of time by being illustrated. So
That's right.
I would say that. And then I'm going to say a second thing is just the relationship that Shannon and I have. We are soul sisters through and through. We have been through this, and we laugh and we're like, I don't think most people would have a friendship as strong as ours, go through something like this, and
It's like a marriage. Yeah.
go through the hard parts. And, while we were creating the book in the early stages, it was easy for us. We do it on our own mom time.
Mhm.
Like, oh no, I'm working 50 hours this week in the clinic, and I've got to do this for my kids. And then when you get a publisher involved, timelines change.
Yep.
And they don't care that it was the end of insurance deductibles and I worked 60 hours that week and Shannon was traveling. It was like, here you go. We need this by Friday, because they have,
Right.
end goals for us. So um, that's just a kudos to Shannon, because I love you dearly. And we did this, and
And you're still friends.
we're still friends. Bye.
It's a test. It really is,
I believe it.
But like, but yeah, I mean, I would say absolutely that has been such a beautiful outcome of this, really finding this soul sister in Jess. I think my favorite, gosh, I really like organizing things. So it was
I can
fun for
tell.
me to take all of Jess's knowledge, because so much of the book is just Jess's knowledge and experience poured into the pages. Um, and then as her former patient, like sort of organizing it in a way that, not that it was my idea to color code it, but like making it color coded, and how are we going to structure it,
Yeah.
and how do we want the workouts to flow, and it should only be 3, and testing them out, like the
Yep.
going through the cueing. And as an athlete who's gotten a lot of exercises with a lot of cueing, like, does this make sense? Can I
Yep.
deliver it? I think the other unique aspect of our book is the birthing preference plan.
Mhm.
this I think it's really special to have cushioned in between, the third trimester and the fourth trimester, this opportunity for moms to understand the delivery process and
Mhm.
ways to prepare for it and ways to involve their partner. I know for me, working with Jess, that was a really profound revelation. And it helped me go into delivery feeling less scared.
Yeah,
And so I think
I love that.
that I would say of the whole book, that component is one I really love. And then, yeah, my favorite part was just like taking all of the information and trying to make it into this like organized manner that moms could then go and be like, okay, I can follow that.
You're speaking my love language. Anyway,
I'd also say Shannon, I don't know if she loved this, but Shannon, it was a huge instrumental piece because she has an English background. And my sentence structure, you would not want to read the book.
okay.
And so Shannon took every sentence and just combed through them. So maybe it wasn't your favorite part, but it was a huge contribution.
Like, yeah, English major, like I love
Daughter of an English teacher. That's why I love you. Yeah.
Yeah. So like oddly, you guys are learning a lot about me. Organizing
this.
things and like, like literally like crafting a sentence and trying to do my best to like make it clear what we were communicating, but also hopefully beautiful or like sounding nice. I hope that when people read the book, they hear our voices. As we've been talking about community. Like I think we hope that when a mom is tired and needing a little bit of help, that as she reads the book, she can hear our voices and know that we're kind of right there cheering her on.
Yeah, it's those little notes. I love that.
Yeah.
You're invited to the Nordic trip. You're in. All right, I have a couple quick fire questions at the end of every episode. Book you're reading or podcast that you're listening to right now, Shannon.
Ooh, I just finished listening to Nick Thompson's on audiobook, Nick Thompson's book, The Running Ground. So that was my most recent book. Yeah.
Okay, Jess.
We've got a couple upcoming podcasts, and so they will be on my radar. I love to listen ahead of time just to
That's smart.
get to know the style. And that's Maddie Alm, Fueling Forward. She's going to step into the nutrition space on this, and really excited. She's just such an incredible human. So Fueling Forward is one. Inside the Method with Heidi Greenwood is an upcoming. She's a fellow UND alum with myself. So been getting some good practical mom tips from her podcasts. And then Lactic Acid podcast we're on this afternoon, actually.
Okay.
And so I've been listening with Dominique and just love his style, and probably don't have a lot of pop culture answers for him, but I'm excited
Okay.
to see where the show goes.
With different podcast hosts, you can go in 17,000 different directions. That's why I love them. Like I'll listen to guests sometimes if I get a chance before. And then my goal is how can I completely make it different than what they just said? Because there's nothing worse than listening to the same podcast over and over again.
Totally.
All right, favorite activity since becoming a mom, and it doesn't have to be with your kids.
Ooh. My favorite thing to do as a family, we do this often, is like kind of go on, almost become like a tourist in our own home. So we live in San Francisco, and we will often hop on Muni, which is our public transportation, go to a different neighborhood and sort of walk through it, stop for a coffee here or lunch there or a playground. It's a great way to get the kids out of the house and off, electronics.
Yes.
And moving, sort of sneaking in movement. But then, also kind of exploring the city that we live in. So I love doing that.
I love that. Jess, how about you?
We're going to adopt that. We haven't done much since COVID in terms of Portland, but I would say favorite thing as a family, we have a little cabin up on Mount Hood. It doesn't have Wi-Fi. We play board games and,
That's awesome.
Start a fire. And it's just a way to disconnect in such a busy world and such a busy time being moms. And then, I've just really found my passion for running again. I had some cardiac issues when I was in college that kind of took away my career. And, obviously going through pregnancies, you're kind of bouncing in and out of when you're and how much you're running. And so I'm just really loving chasing
That's
some
awesome.
PBs and being faster as a master. So that's my favorite solo activity is
I
a few
love it.
hours out on the road.
And I love that you also got to meet Kate Edwards at the running event,
Oh my
which
gosh,
is great.
amazing.
She's
Amazing.
lovely too. She's awesome. All right. Who's someone in your space that we should know about? Who should we be paying attention to these days? Who are you fangirling over?
Hmm. Well, I would hands down say Margie Davenport. I mean, that's a no-brainer for both of us. And I know she was just on your podcast, I think I saw.
She's been on 4 times.
Wow. Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
So she told me, she's like, she thinks that this was one of the first podcasts that she was on. And now she's doing them like left and right. I was like, we were there at the beginning. Yeah.
But I'd also say, Shannon and I have been working with Mo Kamara, and he has InvoCares, which is a platform that his both sister and aunt died in childbirth. And his heart and passion is to bring products and help women through this. And so I just think, anybody who is trying to do the best for moms, I think is somebody to align with. And I'm really excited to see what becomes of it and how much he can grow his platform.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I would say I think that's a great call out, Jess. I think this process for us, once the book was made, the process for us of reaching out and trying to make partnerships and have conversations, there's been some incredible people that we've met along the way. A long list of like all my new people I'm fangirling over. Mo and InnoCares is a company that we were really excited to connect with and see if we could help change some lives for the better. Also, I connected with Lee Glandorf. She was she has the Sweat Look book. And Jess and I met, we're talking with her at the running event. And I actually was just emailing with her recently as well. Voices like that are really beautiful writers, creative thinkers, and highlighting these stories that haven't been highlighted before. So shout out to her.
All right, last one here. What does it mean to you to be an active mom? Shannon.
Juggling, I would say for me, a lot of juggling. But I think for anyone listening, understanding that investing in yourself is the best thing that you can do for the family, carving out that 30, 40 minutes, an hour a day where you get some movement. It can, for me at least, clears my head, heals my body, and helps me connect with my community. And so it's not an indulgence; it's a necessary thing, and treating it as such and making time for it.
Yeah, Jess, how about you? I know I've asked you this before.
Yeah, and I have 2 answers to it. Number one, obviously, being active in the physical realm shows our kids that it's important and it should be a foundation of their life. But also, I think being an active mom, especially as we're in the midst of still running practices, still being a clinician, still trying to get this book out there, is being intentional with your time, because not only is it the physical component, but it's okay, now if I've got an hour, can I be intentional with the relationships with my kids? Now can I be intentional with going out with a girlfriend and hanging out? Now can I be intentional with maybe some self-learning and development? Because you need to hit every bucket in order. You can't just do one thing. You can't just think about the physical component. You can't just, dive into just the social component, but you need to keep all those pieces of life kind of actively getting little drops in them. And sometimes one week you don't do as much in one bucket, and another week, then you try and come back to it. So
yeah, no, I love the intentionality, and I hear little voices already. So I'm like, and intentionally, we are done. I hear my dog at the door too. I'm like, okay, kids, we're done here.
Active mom.
Exactly. I was like, and we're done. The book is Strong as a Mother. Jess and Shannon, thank you so very much for not only writing the book and taking the time to put your thoughts out into the world, but now coming out and sharing it with us. And thanks for finding an intentional hour to chat with us. Hopefully somebody's on the run and listening to the whole thing and enjoying it as well. So thanks for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie.
If you're navigating pregnancy, postpartum, or perimenopause, whether personally or professionally, check out all our free resources and upcoming courses at carriepagliano.com. This podcast reflects the opinions of Dr. Carrie Pagliano and her guests, and it is for entertainment purposes only and should not be considered medical advice. Always consult your healthcare provider with any medical questions. If you enjoyed the episode, please take a moment to leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. And thanks for listening.